All right. Does anybody want to give us the opening prayer?
I can do it.
Awesome, thanks.
Yep. Our dear Father in heaven, we bow our heads before you this morning at the start of our group meeting. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to go to school at BYU Idaho and to learn and to grow, and for the connections that we can make and for the opportunities that we have. We're grateful for this class and the things that it teaches us, and that we pray that we might remember the things that we're learning, that we might use them in our lives and apply them. And we pray that our meeting might go according to plan, and that we'll be able to get things done that we need to today. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you. All right, so this case was pretty interesting. It talked a lot about Jamie Turner, who was this MBA grad who was kind of bouncing around from place to place. He started out at this paper company that did, which reminded me of The Office, but
I know,
it did more
because he
like,
was from Scranton.
yeah, but it did more of like sanitary napkins and like toilet paper. It seemed like those kinds of products. And it was very structured, and he was getting bored, so he moved to a different company, and I forget what that one was called, but it went under, or it was going under, so he decided to again relocate. So he was moving around from job to job, and then finally he was at MLI, where he got hired by Cardulo. I think it's how it's pronounced. Maybe it's wrong, but sorry. And he felt initially like it was going to be a great fit for him. He felt really good about working with Cardulo and the staff there, and very quickly felt like he understood his job responsibilities initially. But as he went forward, unfortunately, it just like got kind of confused and lost in the commotion, and he felt like Cardulo was micromanaging him, and he felt like everything that he was trying to do amongst his fellow employees was just not good, just not working very well. So that's kind of like what I remember, and I think the rest of it, I don't want to like give it away because I feel like that's what we're going to discuss. So let's start talking about the case. So what does everybody believe that the root problems are in the case?
Well, I think the biggest problems are lack of communication and trust. And then every problem that they have can boil down to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely don't think that there's any communication. It seems like it just seems like no one really knows what the problem is almost.
Definitely.
I also think that Cardulo is kind of toxic. I don't think he's necessarily a good fit in the environment. It seems like he really, sorry, for some reason it's really loud in my ear. There we go. I think all I can hear is, okay, is that better? Okay, anyway, but I just think that Cardulo is not necessarily good at being a leader so much as a dictator. And I think that that's causing some problems in the environment.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that Turner is facing something different that he expected from the first interview with his boss.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, like definitely I agree with all those points. I really like what Ashley said about the lack of trust and the lack of communication and lack of trust. So, and I think those, honestly, as we read those books throughout the semester, The Speed of Trust and The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, are two things that are the underlying source of all problems in a team. If we're unable to be like vulnerable and honest and open and communicate with our teams, there's not a lot that can be done. So I think you all had really good points there.
I think there's one more thing is that there doesn't seem to be a very clear direction in the way that the company is working. It seems like Cardullo doesn't really actually know what he's doing a little bit. It seems like there's not anything that's extremely clear. It seems like they're kind of all over the place. And then he's like, oh, well, Turner needs to take this on. This person needs to take this on. He comes in and he makes this huge price change without advising any, like, there wasn't like this meeting to come together. It's just like all of a sudden he decided this was the best thing to happen, and he did that. So I also think they need better clear direction and goals for the company itself. It just seems like they kind of are wishy-washy. I don't know if that makes any sense. It just didn't, it seemed like they were kind of scatterbrained and just didn't have like a clear way of achieving anything. Like I think it was in the 5 dysfunctions where they just didn't have really goals that they were trying to achieve, so it's hard to measure. It just kind of feels like everyone's just kind of doing their job without any cohesive ideas.
Definitely, I 100% agree with that. Another thing that reminds me of is with Cardullo, and is it Cardullo? I feel so weird if I'm saying it wrong.
I think you're saying it right.
Yeah, it's probably right.
I have a retainer in, so I'm like, I have no idea. But I think that it's, oh gosh, now I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. So with Cardullo, it's just, I don't know. I can't remember what I was going to say. I'm sure it'll come back to me.
So
Does anybody have?
I'll add something.
Yeah, perfect.
I agree with like the part of like no trust being involved, because you know, Jamie tries to make all these decisions and Cardullo is always either changing them completely or just kind of undermining everything that he does, as it said in the case, you know. It seems like he's very democratic in his approaches and everything, and he's just kind of all powering with no direction, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and it was also really frustrating while reading the case because he was like, oh yeah, Jamie Turner, I'll give you all of the responsibility to do this, and you can have like this and this and this and this. And then he just goes and like, no, you need to do it this way. So it's like he gives him responsibility, but then he takes it away. So it's like giving a child a piece of candy and then it's like, oh no, wait, you can't have it, sort of thing. It was really driving me nuts.
Yeah, he did definitely make a lot of promises that I felt like he didn't necessarily fulfill. It kind of reminds me of the biblical story. I don't know if this is like wrong to say or not, but like where, you know, the adversary is like telling, you know, Christ, like, you could have all this under my reign, or I don't know. It just kind of was like, whoa. And I think that Cardullo definitely had an issue with like where he wanted to be. Like he really wanted to be in like, I would call it the winner's circle. So like the, you know, with the CEO and all those things, but at the same time, he wanted to keep his position at MLI. And I kind of just said that every time he was at either place, he felt like he needed to reassert his authority. And that's why he would do those things.
I also thought it was interesting, like, I don't know, you know how with the case studies, there's always something else going on. But it's like, it seems like there's something with this Cardullo guy, like he's got some sort of a plan or something. Like he's rarely there. He is gone a lot. And it seemed like he was almost putting Jamie in a position to take over most of his responsibility, to get to keep his position and his authority without actually having to do the work. That's what, it's sort of what I felt like, is that he's just trying to set Jamie up to be like his go-to guy to handle all the stuff that Cardullo doesn't actually want to do, because he made all those promises, took those back, but then dumped extra responsibilities on him that wasn't part of his original job description. You know, and then even when he tries to make decisions in those things, Cardullo still wants to have the final say. He wants to have the final veto. You're like, nope, that's not going to go. And so I think it's really interesting. I've been way too curious. That's the one thing with the case study that drives me nuts, is I want to know the end. I'm like, okay, tell me what's actually going on here, because you know there's something else underneath it all, because it's just, you know, it seems like there was one comment in there where Jamie said that he felt like he understood and knew the business better than Cardullo knew it himself. So I think that there is a lack of knowledge, and maybe Cardullo's just in over his head, and his way of dealing with that is asserting power to make him seem scary, almost, so that no one questions him. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now, I could be totally off, but that's just sort of how it seems.
No, I definitely agree.
Well, and I honestly think that Cardullo has too many responsibilities, because he is like the head of this whatever department and the head of this department. So he's like trying to merge them all together, but by doing that, he's like, you know, when you multitask, you like leave like you put less energy on every single task. I think that's what's happening. Just because he has so much to do, he's not putting enough effort into everything.
I agree. I think that's a really good point. The whole part that we do multitask, and sometimes that can take almost more energy to multitask with less reward. But yeah, I think that a big issue, I think the main issues that we've been talking about is the lack of communication, trust, the lack of direction, and then the fact that we have this person that's supposed to be, you know, the go-to is just doesn't even know what to do in, you know, situations, I feel like. And, you know, like the case study said, Cardullo was very, I don't know the right word. I would say maybe like prominent or just very important in the decision to acquire MLI for, what was it called, the company?
Triple S.
Triple S, thank you. It reminded me of Point S in Rexburg. But so he was very important in that decision. And so because of that, you know, the leaders felt that he should be, you know, kind of the guy for that. But that wasn't what Cardullo wanted. He wanted, again, to be like in, was it San Francisco or LA or something, somewhere in California, to be in that kind of bigger group. Does anybody have anything else to say about the root problems of the case?
I was just gonna add to that a little bit and say, like, I think one of the big problems we kind of roundabout talked about it was just there's such a big difference in their like personal life, like their personalities between Jamie and Pat, and they also have like they have a lot of differences in their management styles as well.
Oh, definitely.
And I think that's what's causing them to clash so much.
Definitely.
Yeah, also I think that Turner is overwhelmed. I think that he should follow the example of his boss, Carmelo, and offer other responsibilities to other members of the team.
Great. Good morning, Priscilla. Can you hear me? Awesome. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if Priscilla can. Okay, so great. So let's move on to the next question. This question says, how did Turner get himself into this predicament? What is going on for Cardullo? So I think we kind of talked a little bit about one of those, but the main one I think we should focus on is how did Turner get himself into this predicament?
I think that it was like a slow progression, just like he expected certain things, and then when they didn't happen, he just didn't come out and say it. Like, I can't think of a specific example to that right now because my mind's still a little fuzzy, but yeah, foggy. But like there were so many promises, and then when they didn't happen, he didn't go out to Cardullo and be like, "Hey, so you told me that I would do this. Like, why isn't this happening?" Sort of thing. He just let it happen. Like, and that was the biggest problem.
What time is it?
Yeah, I think that Turner, like maybe he should have tried to find more information about Cardullo before accepting the job, because I think Cardullo's promises were kind of big, and maybe that should have put up some sort of a red flag about the environment. So while he had looked at the business itself, maybe he didn't spend the time to research, exactly where MLI was, or, like Cardullo. So I don't know, maybe doing a little more footwork before he accepted the job would have also made it helpful, or talking to people in the organization. Because if you remember, when he did his interview, Cardullo didn't really let him talk to anybody. And so he kind of kept him to himself. And I don't know, there was just a couple red flags along the way that I think he probably should have looked at.
Yeah. That's a good point. I forgot about him kind of like shutting him off from the office. He's like, oh, they're all busy.
That was weird. I was like, that seems kind of odd. Normally you'd introduce him to people and, I don't know.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the predicament?
I can't really think of anything else. I too just think that he probably just jumped into the job a little bit too quick. I think he got a little too excited from the start with just hearing how he'd have such rapid growth, and I don't know. And part of me doesn't think that was really Jamie's fault. I don't understand why Cardullo, like, I don't know, he was a totally different person at first. He gave off the impression that this was like the picture perfect job for Jamie. And I mean, if I was Jamie, I feel like I'd kind of think the same thing. I'd get excited about it. I'm like, yeah, this is a great opportunity to grow and a good career, and then it's just like things just flip-flopped on him pretty quick.
Right.
I guess he could have from the start, done a little bit more background looking into it. I don't know. Kind of a tough one.
Sorry I'm late, but I just wanted to say too, I thought that he was being, in a way, not the word greedy is not right, but he was just like money. He likes the compensation was just so huge. He just, over time, he doubled his salary, and then he started making even more again. So I think he was just like overzealous in his new opportunity, but I think that he didn't follow the promptings that he had in the beginning, to where he kind of felt like something was off. He didn't meet executives, so I think those were a bad combination.
I think it's just remembering that old phrase: if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Like, maybe he should. I don't know, but I agree with Richard. I probably would have, like, he liked the idea of Chicago. Like, there was a lot of things that he was really excited about, and so it's hard to like know exactly what to do or how to like slow it down and like take the time. But I'm like, it did seem a little too good to be true, but I don't know.
Well, and the thing is, for like him, he's a single guy, and he can make really quick decisions, and it's not an issue or anything. So it was just kind of, I don't know. It was a little hasty. I think it's kind of more of the decision process. You have to pick out like a new toy as a kid than as an adult picking a new job. So, I mean, it was just kind of quick. But
yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't think about that, but that's totally right. I think for younger students, that is probably a really good lesson to learn. It's if you have a family, you can't really just, hop over and, like make a little bit more, do a little bit more research before you decide. So,
yeah, for sure.
Does anybody else have anything to add on the predicament?
I don't think so.
All right. I'll take the silence as a no. So this next question. Okay, so it talks about kind of, again, just along the same lines. What did Pat Cardullo and Jamie Turner each initially bring to the situation at MLI that would seem to ensure success?
I think that Jamie brings experience and enthusiasm. I think that that's something that he was definitely like excited about, the idea of having his autonomy and being able to like make more decisions himself and be a little bit more instrumental in the working of the business. It just seemed like he was kind of he felt a little stagnant in his last job. And so what's great is that Jamie has this great enthusiasm, and it seems like he's knowledgeable and that he knows how to do it. And so I think he is quite valuable to Cardullo in that way. Like, I think that was really enticing to Cardullo as well.
Well, and I think Cardullo brings the experience, but he just has kind of gotten like set in his ways, so he doesn't want to change it up at all.
Yeah.
I thought Cardullo kind of reminded me of someone that I, worked associated with probably like 20 years ago. I worked for a bank, and one of the bank executives was in business development, and he was always traveling and going to lunch, and like nobody really knew what he did. And I don't know why, but I thought about this executive when I was reading Cardullo, because I thought, with him traveling so much and, he was in all these different places, it didn't seem like I couldn't get a really good feeling for how productive he could be with all of his responsibilities. And it just seemed like what he was doing was vague.
Yeah. So I think that Jamie brings to the table, like, obviously, like a new management style that Turner's not used to, or the other dude's not used to. But I think Jamie really brings a lot of like how do I say it? Like care and like compassion into the company. Like he's a lot more caring. He cares a lot more about like the feelings of others and the satisfaction of other people in the business, rather than I feel like he's kind of an emotional dude, and where Pat is more, he's more of a deep thinker. He's doesn't care so much about feelings of others, it seems like. So I think that's something that Jamie brings to the table that's good.
But so it really drove me nuts how everybody didn't like Kelly except for Turner, because he was like, I feel like Kelly was a good person, and I felt like he did his job good, but so many people were just like, oh, well, he doesn't want to do what I want, sort of thing. So they're like, he's just a bad person, so let's fire him.
Yeah.
I agree. I think there was definitely some office politics, and like the culture is really bad there on top of everything. And it's interesting to bring in an outsider like Jamie, because he was able to kind of see through that and see the value of Kelly, because it just seemed odd how quickly it was like, oh, well, he disagreed with me, so he should be out of here. Like, that's crazy, And so it seemed interesting to me, like some of the dynamics between the employees, which I don't know. Anyways, it brings up like, what's the Chin? Is it Julie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something's going on with that girl. Like, I don't know what she's up to, but it's, it's just interesting that it's like Cardullo didn't seem to have an issue with someone who's probably skimming off the top of the company, but he has an issue with Kelly who's doing his job. You know what I mean? And it seems odd. It's just very bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's related with the Jamie philosophy, because when he came to the company, he spent the first few days meeting with the people inside the company. So he wants to be in touch and to know what others think about the company and how it's working. And Carmelo is always traveling and avoiding to the central focus of the company.
And I do think Pat has he has the skills to be a good leader. It just doesn't seem like he knows how to do that, because it seems like people respect him. It may be more out of fear, but that can be useful. And so it's like if there's anything he brings to the table, it's that people are they will respect him if he could learn to lead properly. It could really actually be a huge asset to the company.
That was really funny what you said about fear.
Well,
yeah, that's good.
I've seen it in businesses before, and sometimes it's just the title that scares people, but it's like definitely sometimes there's those issues. It just kind of cracks me up a little bit.
just the
Definitely.
intimidation factor a little bit. It's intimidating.
That's
A boss
right.
that's a little bit intimidating can be a good thing, you know.
So
Well-
real quick, just to add on to this question, it also asks about failure. So if you don't necessarily think that it was successful, what do you, if it's a failure as well? So feel free to keep that in mind.
Okay, so then I have something to definitely add to the failure. I did not appreciate how Cardulo was like, hey, we're going to do the 25% price margin on everything. Because, like, I felt like just by that move, he did not understand anything about the company. So it's like, why? Why are you even in this job? Like, you have experience and you have, like, a good grip on, like, all of the CE or all of the executives and everything, but that is the only reason that you're in this, because like obviously he does not understand the workings of the business. So that just like drove me crazy.
And it seemed like an overreach of his position. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like he sat and analyzed the numbers with finances or, you know, or anything like that. He just was like, you know what sounds good to me? Like, I think we're going to do this. I agree with you, Ashley. Like, it just showed that he knows nothing about what's actually going on. And it was a huge failure. It was huge.
Awesome, guys. So one thing I want to add in before we get to kind of the closing questions, this is like super brief today, but one thing that I thought was a super inappropriate workplace relationship, I guess you could say, was the interactions between Julie Chin and Jamie Turner. I was going to say Mike, I don't know. Jamie Turner. So I don't know if you guys remember, but there was at one point where, you know, Jamie Turner came into the office and like printed out an email and then like crumpled it up and threw it into her waste paper basket and said, "I got your email," and walked away. So do you guys just want to elaborate a little bit more on like how like that relationship?
Well, I think it's unprofessional, but I don't think that it's uncommon.
That's not good.
It's true. Well, and it didn't Julie at one point basically say, mind your own business, like, and keep your nose out of finance, like something to that effect, where it was just kind of like, just do your job and leave me alone. I think that I really do think Julie's up to something, and I think that Jamie picks up on that vibe. I think he kind of can tell that there's something going on, because he seems like a good judge of character. So that seems kind of uncharacteristic to me that he did that. It seemed petty, actually. I just thought it was kind of a petty thing to do. But I think that I don't know. I do think that there's some red flags there that need to be addressed. But between their relationship, like, he's got to figure a way to get along with her. You know, it's a big deal. But I don't know. That whole situation is really weird to me. It's kind of...
Well, it seemed to me that Julie had, she knew she could get away with a lot of things because of her personal relationship. You know, I mentioned that she had been like to a basketball game or something like that. I don't know, something like that. Some entertainment venue where, you know, she was spending time with Cardulo, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else was too, but.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely that relationship with Cardulo that probably made her feel more comfortable with behaving the way she did. But
and I think really she just wants the job of director when Cardulo moves up. So she's just like doing everything that he would want.
Definitely. So in terms of like real life application for that, what are ways that we can avoid getting to the point of like passive aggressive behavior, or just drop the passive and go to aggressive?
I honestly think the answer to everything is honesty and communication. Because if you just say everything at the beginning, like, hey, so I don't appreciate how you told me that I was going to have this job and now you're giving me this job, sort of thing. Like, if he confronted Cardulo at the very beginning and Cardulo actually sat there and listened, like, then I think they would get a lot further and they wouldn't have to get to this point.
I agree. I think. Oh, go for it. Sorry.
It seemed like Jamie really, I mean, tried pretty hard to talk with Pat, but it wasn't ever working out. Like it said, like 3 different times he tried to invite him out, kind of on a personal level, go get some drinks or whatever they said they were doing. And you know, hopefully, it seemed like he really wanted to work things out. And I know that was probably towards the end, you know, when problems were really getting bad, but I don't know, just it seems like he put forth quite a bit of effort, and it was just like impossible to even talk to Pat Cardillo.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think what makes the situation tough as well is that Jamie was new, you know, like he was just getting his feet wet, and you wouldn't normally be direct with your boss about like, hey, I don't like the way you're treating, you know, like up front until you're more comfortable and you have a better relationship. And so I think that that's also part of it, you know, like he just probably didn't want to overstep too soon. And by avoiding it a little bit and not being as direct in the beginning when he started seeing those switches of behaviors, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting situation that way.
Well, I think if he had gone and met with more executives in the beginning, like, you know, he realized he hadn't done, he would have been able to see some of that, you know, employee relationship dynamics. I mean, he could have picked up on some of those red flags some more.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, like was mentioned, Jamie didn't have like necessarily a bad relationship with anybody in the office in terms of like informally. It was just when they got to formal settings that's when the issues started arising. And, you know, it probably would have been good to sit in on a meeting or, you know, understand the team dynamic and things like that. So, okay, so another question. So, okay, this one confuses me a little. It says, how, if at all, should Turner approach Cardullo at the end of the case? I would just say, how should Turner approach Cardullo about this situation? And honestly, even how should he approach Chin about this, you know, their relationship too? So either relationship. Sorry, kids.
I think with Cardullo, he's trying. I think it's important that he's prepared going in, that he's not like scattered, that he actually has his thoughts well planned out of what it is exactly he wants to say, because it's like you don't want to get your feelings involved when what you're trying to do is fix the business. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I think he needs to kind of sift through what the promises were and whatever, and just more or less like get down to the nitty gritty of the business. And so I think just really putting some good forethought into it before talking to Cardullo, so that his emotions or like feelings don't take over, that he's really focusing on the issues at hand, I think would be important.
And I think he also needs to work with Cardullo to devise a plan, because it's really hard to just say, hey, this is what I think should happen, because the other person is not invested at all. So they need to work together like, hey, how can we make this better?
I kind of feel like there's no real possible future for them to work well together. Honestly, I'd say he just needs to go. I mean, that's what I put in my write-up, because he's already tried. And, you know, the times that he's approached him, he's like, oh, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. Cardullo's just, it's just not a good working environment. And I know like he put himself in a position where he overextended himself probably financially and moved there, but I'd say he's got to look for another job. I wouldn't want to work in that environment.
Yeah, I think that Cardullo and Chin avoid to face the problem. So I think that is the responsibility of Jimmy to confront the problems and talk with them, and I don't know, show what is his position and how he feels respecting to what is happening in the company.
I think those are all really good points about how, at this point, what should he do? He's in kind of a negative work environment, I'd say, or a not productive work environment. And so I do think that I think that it is really important for us to be honest and open in terms of like communication with our superiors. But I also think it's really important to have tact and to know what to say and when to say it. Cardullo is not a good leader right now, and it probably is just because he's overextended, essentially. And he probably, I don't know about you guys, but if I have, like someone said about multitasking, if I have so many things on my plate, I'm going to forget, this thing or this thing or this thing. And so I think that may have been kind of an issue too, is that he's just trying to get things done. Even if he's taking shortcuts, he's just trying to get it done. Is there anything that either person could have done differently?
I think Cardullo, whatever his name is, I think he should have listened. I think he should have actually taken what Jamie said and been like, okay, so I realize that this is an issue and this is an issue. Like, what can we do to fix it? Instead of just saying, okay, yeah, maybe do that. And then, like, just totally blowing him off when he comes back.
I agree. And I do think that Jamie should have done a little more footwork before accepting the job, because I don't necessarily disagree with Priscilla that at this point, one of the only reasons he's not leaving this job is just because he's changed jobs in the last, 18 months. And while that will not look great on his career, I also think that it could be bad for his career to be in a company that's going to ultimately have all these problems. Like, that could also reflect badly on him. And so I think that Jamie really should have done his footwork more before accepting this position. And moving to Chicago and buying a condo. Like, he made this extremely permanent without really knowing as much maybe as he should have. It's hard. It's hard to know.
I honestly feel like this case almost gave us the least to work with in terms of information out of several of our cases, or it was one of the least informational cases. So I thought sometimes it was just kind of hard to draw, because I almost thought it was just like complaining over and over and over again about like the same relationship and the same problems. And I think that's kind of a good thing to think about too, is because when you have two people entering a situation, someone has to change, and like the other person always thinks it's going to be the other person because they, everybody thinks they're great. But, in this situation, neither were willing to budge. And I do think that Turner had some character flaws, not character flaws. I think that he had some, issues as well that he needed to work on. But obviously I feel like Cardullo was the most in the wrong because of his seniority in the company. But yeah, so I do think that, both people had something to work on.
Yeah. It is definitely possible to have two managers that have completely different management styles. It's totally possible for them to, work things out and to make it happen. But I don't know. I kind of gather that Jamie is willing to do that. I think if they talk, maybe Jamie just seems like a pleaser, like a people pleaser, that I feel like he'd probably, I don't know. I feel like he would probably change. It doesn't, we don't know that. It doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. Like I agree that they probably won't work good together, but I think there is changes that they could make that could make it work out.
All right, so we've kind of reached the end of our questions. So does anybody have any last minute things that they want to say? I felt like that was a pretty easy case to cover in that it was just super brief. So
It's true.
So we have another meeting that we have to do.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. And so,
Did
Oh,
it give
sorry.
an end? Did it did we get an end result like we usually do of what happened?
no, I
What?
Googled it too.
Oh my god.
Let's just assume that they all lived happily ever after.
I want to assume that Cardullo was fired or like
Yeah.
given less work.
Hey, that's something too I said actually in my report. You know how the dude from the sister
Yeah,
company or
Oliver.
whatever was, yeah, Oliver was coming in. I felt like when he came that he would totally, you know, obviously he's coming because there's a big problem, but I think he would come and see that there's like if Pat and Turner weren't able to meet, I feel like he would definitely come and be like, whoa, like you guys got a problem between you guys, and he might have a little bit higher power and like be able to maybe help them come to a conclusion. And that's kind of what I thought is he was gonna like see Jamie Turner and be like, you know, I kind of like the style of this guy. Like I feel like he's doing pretty good. And then I feel like this guy would have came and not liked Pat Cardullo at all, and kind of found out that he was the problem. So I don't know. I think that's probably how it ended.
That's what I was
kinda-
hoping for.
Yeah, I mentioned something like that. Maybe that he could have had like some kind of exit interview with Oliver before he left so that he could possibly salvage his career. You know.
Well, I'm so sorry that there's no resolve to this, and I hope that it doesn't keep you up at night for the next couple of weeks. But yeah, so in terms of the last meeting, I am driving to Arizona on Monday, and so I won't be available that day. And then also I'm driving then we're going to be driving the next day. So it would either have to be tomorrow that we do the case study or after probably Wednesday for me next week.
Wednesday would work best for me next week.
Wednesday I work at 9 in the morning.
Yeah, I also
So
work early in the morning.
we would have to do it before that because I have to leave at like 8:30. So, or we could do it later at like 6 or 7.
I could do tomorrow morning, but my earlier week is easier than my midweek next week.
I'm sorry. I could probably do Tuesday. I could just do it from the hotel room.
I still work at 9 on Tuesday. So I
I
work
work on Tuesday.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 9.
Wow, that's gonna be a hard final week.
Yeah.
Wednesday works for me. In the morning or night.
Are you guys opposed to doing much earlier?
What did you
Like
say?
7:30.
I just said, are you guys opposed to doing a lot earlier, like being able to be done by whenever Ashley needs to leave, 8:30 or whatever?
Yeah, I could do that. I woke up at 5, so
Oh wow. I
Are
did
we
not wake
talking
up at 5.
Are we talking about Tuesday or Wednesday?
You could do that
Wednesday.
Tuesday or Wednesday?
Well, Tuesday, okay. It's a silly thing, but I'm dropping my kids off at school and then I'm driving to a friend's house. And I'll be gone all day. But that's like my kids get dropped. I'm an hour later than you guys, and so it's like for me to be early is like early, which is like 5 a.m. your time. So I'm trying to find like Tuesday's a rough day for me. Wednesday I could probably make it work. Wednesday morning?
Let's do Wednesday.
Okay, I could probably make that work.
Wednesday at like 7:30 Idaho time.
38:30.
Yeah.
That work?
I'm pretty sure I'm in.
Or at least for you, but
I'll have to leave. Tell me again, what time on Utah time?
7:30.
Okay, so that's 8:30 my time.
That Wednesday,
Well, because if you want to do it earlier, we could even meet at 7.
yeah, is it, can we do it a little earlier?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
7's good.
7.
7. Is
I
there anyone
actually
that
have
wants
to go, guys. So 7.
Yeah.
Yes, that sounds great.
Cool.
Katie.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.